We'll begin with the pledge to the flag, please. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jess, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Sidoti.
Here.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Here.
Mr. Varga.
Here.
Mr. Cicero.
Here.
Mr. Cook.
Here.
Mr. Snow.
Here. We have no public hearings this evening. Under old business, conditional use permitted to allow a church at 7671 Johnny Cake Ridge Road. Is that applicant here? Okay. Would you come forward and identify yourself for the clerk, please?
Ken Wright, senior pastor.
Okay. And we tabled you at the last meeting for a variety of reasons. Any comments from the administration?
Well, Mr. Wright and staff submitted a timeline that I had suggested that he provide a little bit more.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to take this off the table?
I think we do. So let's do that.
Thank you.
Motion to remove item 1 from the table.
Second.
Yes?
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. Our purpose is we are to secure conditional use permit to allow a church at 7676 Johnny Cake Ridge Road. Phase 1 would consist of office space for 5 offices. Currently, we have 4 full-time employees. Also, our life group meetings might be better known as Bible studies as well. And they're scheduled throughout the week at various times. Our groups consist between 7 to 15 people, and there are typically no more than 25 people combined in attendance during these group sessions. Some of the Bible studies are adult, youth, children, music team, staff meetings, children or church volunteer training, some activity groups such as an exercise group and a packing lunch group. Most of our groups, most of our studies meet off-site in homes or public facilities. I just want to let the board know that our church has existed for 5 years without a building. We obviously rent the school. We rent office space over on Munson, 2,000 square feet of office space, and that's how we've functioned for the last 5 years. Our outreach group ministries, all of these are done off-site. Again, they're done off-site. And some of our outreach groups, we help Project Hope, Hannah's Home, Salvation Army, and other charitable deeds or organizations, providing financial assistance or volunteer assistance to these organizations. So again, it's us partnering with these groups to help them in whatever way that we can. Phase 2 would be to secure an architect. We are in the process of interviewing architects at this time. After that, to develop a master site plan and then present that master site plan to the Planning Commission. It is our goal, hopefully by the fall of 2019. Moving into phase 3 would be to start the renovation for sanctuary space between the spring or the fall of 2020. Kind of the timeline that we have put together at this point. Also, the parking issues is I'd like to address as well. We are currently, according to the staff report, we are within the required amount of parking spaces on the property as it exists. Also, as a church, part of our ministry is we provide parking lot attendance for every service. And I think there is a picture right here, as you can see. So every service, we have parking attendants that help us assist with the flow of traffic coming in, the flow going out, and assisting with parking. And we've had that since the beginning of our church. So we also, with the current parking that is available at the school and the additional parking that could be added. And I think there's also, as you can see here, to the east, the darker blue, to the Johnny Cake Ridge Road there, the lighter blue, the green area, and I'm not sure what that other color is there, towards the back. Those are the existing parking spots, which I believe add up to 101 parking spots. And then also, the additional parking would include 26 future spots, and that would be the purple that's on the print as well. And that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Kathy, anything, comments from the administration?
Just a few things. Just to clarify the parking calculations, because I know there's been some questions. When you look at the ratio, there's a minimum and a maximum ratio, which is 0.25 spaces per seat. And that takes into consideration, that's a common planning standard for a church facility. And that takes into consideration the fact that when you attend church, you generally attend with a family. So unlike certain types of uses where you might be going individually, and of course there's going to be individuals that go on their own, but you assume that there's going to be larger groups attending in one car. So that's why the standard is set up that way. I think the board might want to consider having, and also just to clarify, on the current plans that were submitted, and when the church moves forward with plans for renovation of the sanctuary space, that all has to be reviewed by our chief building official, who has to obviously approve and sign off on occupancy. And so right now, those standards that are on the site plan are based on a 250 max person occupancy in the current gathering space. So if that number changes, the chief building official will have to recalculate, and then we will have to recalculate parking. And obviously, as a conditional use, we can go back and require anybody to add more spaces. It might not be a bad idea as a condition to consider just adding those land bank parking spaces now. I mean, I think that it's not, based on, and again, right now, the approval in front of you is for the use itself. But when this goes through that specific building design approval, that has to be evaluated again, and planning will evaluate it again. If it doesn't meet the parking, we're going to have to require more parking. So I just wanted to make sure that point was made clear to everybody here. And then I would also like to bring up the point about the discrepancy with the possible agreement with the parking lot to the east, if the applicant can address that.
Yeah, I spoke with Scott Bixel, who is the property manager of the Erie Commons. Verbally, we have spoken. As a matter of fact, I spoke with him he called me prior to me walking in here tonight. And we understand that we would have to sit down and things would have to be drawn up, contract and agreement, excuse me, whether that's leasing that parking lot in the future and or purchasing the parking lot in the future.
Because I think the city got information from that gentleman saying that there was no agreement
Well,
at that point.
From the property management group itself, not that particular person, but somebody else.
Correct.
So,
Which it would have to move up.
up the food chain.
Correct. And we're not there yet.
Okay.
So,
Anything else from the administration? I think there was some discussion at the last meeting about the traffic working group and what could be done with that street. Can you enlighten us on that?
So at the traffic working group, again, for the benefit of everyone here, the traffic working group consists of representatives from the city engineer's office, the police and fire departments, public works, and the city manager's office. So I attended the meeting and we discussed the concerns that were raised at the last meeting. And all of the members of each department agreed that they do not want a public right-of-way blocked from access at any time. So they recommended that no parking signs are posted along the south side of Stanford Avenue, which will be provided by the city to eliminate double-sided parking. If that continues to be a problem, we could consider prohibiting parking on both sides of the street, but we'd like to see how that, plays out, because they typically don't prohibit parking on both sides of the street.
That would be the police department's drive-through to see if people are adhering to that sign?
Right. And they would ticket those that are not,
Violation.
that are in violation of that. So, and then also the idea with the parking attendants there for church services, we would certainly encourage them to deter any of that off-site parking, That's not the intent of that street. It's meant to be an access point, and it's a public right-of-way. So as with any public right-of-way in the city, I mean, it can be used for access and to be parked on. But, for, ongoing gatherings, we want them to use their parking lot as much as possible.
So, any comments back?
I think that pretty much
Says it all.
says it all.
Okay. Commissioners, questions for the applicant or the administration?
Mr. Chairman,
Go right ahead.
just for the applicant, based on the phases that you just showed us, when do you expect to start holding services there if you got the CUP? Would that be phase 3 after you start renovations, or?
Probably because there's really no adequate space right now to accommodate us for service.
So we're looking at services probably a year from now when you would, or so?
Yes,
Okay. So in the meantime, you'd be using the building for what? The Bible studies?
yes, the office use, training,
There's been some questions on what you might do there. Would you hold a soup kitchen there?
no,
Okay.
no.
I just want that on the record. so
Okay, yeah.
People heard it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have right now.
So, the CUP for this evening is for the office space? Am I correct in that?
Well, the approval of the church, which
know.
has ancillary uses like office and meetings.
Right.
So
But
you would be
basically,
approving the
that's what
church.
should we approve it, that's what we're approving.
Yeah, and then obviously if he has to modify anything that was approved tonight based on what they end up wanting to design with the sanctuary space, they're going to come back to the planning commission.
I just,
Go right ahead.
I have a question to the city. So, just so that this is clear, we're giving them, in a sense, almost a temporary use of the building, but not complete, because they can't hold services there yet. And they will come back to us after they have architectural plans, and they have a master plan, which would show all site developments, and they'd come back to this commission to review that and get it approved.
If you were to
And at
approve,
that time, they could have services, assuming an approval.
no, if you were to approve it tonight, they could have service. What they're just saying is that they're going to actually modify the sanctuary space to accommodate their needs. They're just choosing to wait to utilize it for service space. But when you're approving the use tonight as a church, you're approving the
So
church.
we're approving the whole thing. And it's his statement that they're not going to use it until after they do the modifications in order to create the proper environment.
Mr. Miller, any comment back from you, from legal?
I think that, I've reviewed this from a legal standpoint. I think the administration has done a nice job with their due diligence on making sure we have appropriate number of parking spaces reserved for the uses that are set in place. And I think that we need to focus on the issue of approving a permitted use as it's presented to us today. If there's problems in the future, we'll deal with those problems as the city of Mentor always does. If there's parking issues, the city of Mentor will deal with that with its police department. If there's other issues, use issues, I'm comfortable that our code enforcement people will do their usual excellent work in making sure that only appropriate number of people and only appropriate uses are going on in the facility.
Kathy, we're concerned with the 3 conditions that are outlined in the staff report?
And then, like I said, on item 3, we've indicated land bank parking spaces depicted on the site plan may be required by the city to be installed, you might want to change that to say, again, at your
Shall be
discretion.
installed?
Shall be installed.
Okay.
Would you be willing to put the 26 land banks in now?
The additional parking?
Yeah, the 26 on the pink or whatever. that is.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why we would need them at this point. That's,
You would need them because we asked you to put them in.
well, as far as where we are now with the requirements. I'm sure we could.
If it was a requirement, would you?
Well, if it was a requirement, we had to do it. we
I mean,
would
you're
do it.
probably going to I was there, you're going to put new blacktop here, right?
Yes.
So even if you did that later, then you'd wind up with a joint in the asphalt. I mean, from a construction standpoint, it would be nice to just do it all now. Costs more now, but it seems like that would alleviate some of the parking concerns.
My construction guy's here. Could he speak on? Sure. Okay.
That's a yes?
Yes.
So that could be a condition to add the 26?
Yes.
And then I have just something for Kathy. Could you just give a brief overview of what is and is not allowed in this CUP to just ease a little bit of the speculation?
So, let me get the actual terminology that's in the code.
Mr. Chairman, while she's looking at, can I ask the pastor? Pastor Wright, while she's looking that up, I have a question.
Yes.
At the last meeting, I had suggested, because this was becoming a contentious matter, that maybe you should meet with the residents and start a dialogue so you can start squelching rumors, discuss their concerns, and start talking. Did you meet with the residents since the last meeting?
I have not met with the residents. A gentleman, Lloyd, reached out to me this morning, and I'm more than happy. I didn't know who or where this was coming from, the concerns, until this morning. The individual's name. And I'm more than willing to sit down and help alleviate any concerns that he might have. I think there's just a misconception on what we as a church do. We're not a soup kitchen. We're not a homeless shelter. We assist those places.
Well, you're answering my question. That's the reason you need a dialogue. You know, you have to start communicating so you can understand what you're bringing to the table, what their concerns are. You have to talk to the residents. I strongly urge you to do that. I'm surprised you didn't make an effort to
Well,
do that.
logistically, we weren't really sure how to go about that. We didn't know if we would stir up more, discourse than alleviating any of those questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would suggest you follow Mr. Sidoti's advice. He's a very smart guy.
It's just common sense, that's all it is.
Well, can I ask, how many neighbors have issued,
Well, you were at the last meeting, correct?
yes?
So you heard the dialogue that was existing between the neighborhood and your church.
It was the neighbor, not the neighborhood. There was one individual that was here.
Yeah, but how do you know that individual wasn't speaking for the group?
I'd assumed their group would be here if they were concerned about it.
Make assumptions.
Well, that's what he was doing. He was making assumptions.
That's why I think if you follow Mr. Sidoti's advice, meet with those folks, arrest their fears, and we'll go from there.
I mean, we can send a letter to them. We could do that.
You have a
Set
roll
up a
of,
time
you
where
have,
we
you have a
could-
roll of quarters? You can pick up the phone and talk to them.
Well, getting that information, not sure how I would go about getting,
If you're willing to meet with them, I see a representation of them here tonight. They're listening to us, get together after this meeting, maybe get something going.
well, this representation is Life Point Church.
What about other residents here tonight from the area? Raise your hands.
No, it's not a public hearing this evening. We had the public hearing at the last meeting, so there is no opportunity to talk tonight.
I am a resident of the neighborhood and a member of the church. As a matter of fact, I joined the church when I heard they were moving into this building. And I'm looking forward to helping them with their outreach. There's no problem with this church. They are good people who want to do good things in the neighborhood.
Nobody's questioning that. We're not questioning it.
I am a member of the neighborhood this church is moving into, and I am for everything they want to do. I have no problem with any of these things. If they want to start a business or a homeless shelter, I would be for it, and I live 2 streets from this building.
Right.
Kathy, are you ready?
So in the R2 district, churches are considered a conditionally permitted use. And with that, there are accessory uses that are permitted in single-family zones, one of which is associated with a church, which would be a child daycare. And again, it would be an accessory use, not the primary use of the facility.
And anything different than that would require them coming to us
Correct,
for approval of a plan, whatever.
correct.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners?
I just have one other question.
Go right ahead.
I've accepted I've always followed the guidance of the fire department and the police department, so any objections I had before I'll set aside. I only have one question, that is, because that side street, Stafford, or I think it's the name of the street? Stamford, yeah. Is not a standard designed width, it's not a standard, it doesn't meet the standard for the city. Is there any consideration, or could we consider putting no parking signs on both sides of the street? Because it's not really a standard street size, width, no curbs, you know? I know that's not the usual, but the
That
street
was
is...
discussed actually at the meeting, and they're not in favor of that at this time.
Okay.
They'll certainly review it if it does become a problem.
All right, I guess that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll motion for approval with the 3 conditions, with the 1 change in condition 3, to require the land banked parking
Be installed.
be installed.
Second.
And in the meantime, you'll continue to work with the adjacent property owners to the east, right?
Yes.
Okay. No, to the east. He's talking about...
The east is the parking.
No, I'm talking about the
The
mall.
Erie
Oh, I'm sorry, sorry.
Erie Commons.
yes.
Mr.
Yes, when you're
Sidoti.
ready.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Okay, you got your approval.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, conditional use permit to allow a child daycare center at 9521 Lake Shore Boulevard. I see that applicant is here. Is that correct? This was another tabled item at the previous meeting, so we'll entertain a motion to take it off the table.
So moved.
Second.
Jess, when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti.
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann.
Yes.
Mr. Varga.
Yes.
Mr. Cicero.
Yes.
Mr. Cook.
Yes.
Mr. Snow.
Yes. Go right ahead. Now, we tabled it at the last meeting to give Mr. Viviani an opportunity to clean up the property. Has that been done to your satisfaction?
I personally have not gone over there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got a call from Mr. Viviani on Tuesday that we were getting back on the board, and I just received this in my mailbox today.
Larry, somebody from your department went out there and checked on it. Was it
Correct.
Kayla? And?
We have pictures up there of before and after. We have them taken, at different times during this month. And you can see the areas of brush that have been removed, cleaned up significantly as of today.
So we want to be sure that that doesn't continue to be an obstacle to your operation. Mr. Viviani, that's a yes?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Zan,
The trailer's gone?
trailer's gone.
Trailer's gone.
Trailer's gone.
All the construction debris is gone.
So what do you want to do there?
We want to open up a childcare center where we'll be taking care of children from 6 weeks to age 14.
Okay. Questions from the commissioners?
Mr. Chairman,
Right ahead.
do you provide like transportation for your students? Do you have buses or vans or those kind of things?
We do, yes.
Okay. There was just a concern raised about maybe having those sitting in the parking lot idling, where the fumes and so forth are going to go right over to the residential property that's right next door. So is there something we can do about that? Make sure that those aren't just sitting there running for long periods of time?
We're actually new to transportation. We operate a facility on a corner of Menor Avenue and Heisley, and we do not use our buses idling. I have not done transportation in wintertime, so I don't know how long it would take just to get the buses warmed up to take kids to and from school. But, I mean, I can't promise or guarantee that they will not be out there for a certain period of time. I would probably say not more than 10 minutes. I mean, I don't run my own personal car for more than that to warm it up, but we definitely want it to be warm for the kids to get on
Sure.
the bus.
I just want it noted that you do have somebody fairly close to your property, and so that parking lot is right there next to their house.
Absolutely. Noted.
Any questions?
Yeah, just have a question. With the improvements that'll be made internal to the building, will there be any external changes to the building at all?
As of right now, no. The way that the building is actually set up, we actually like the way the external is. We will go ahead and replace the fence once we get in there to put a more enclosed environment, so that way kids feel more secure in there when it's not chain linked.
The kids only go in the fenced-in area, or use that, there's a pretty large field on the western side?
If they do go outside of the fenced area, they do it with a permission slip to be able to go out there where the ratio doubles. So there's more supervision on keeping the children safe from running out onto the street.
Thank you.
So you read the staff report. There are
Yes.
5 conditions listed there.
I read 3.
There's 5.
There's 5.
So do you need to have a second to look those over? Because we want to be sure you're in agreement with those.
No, I am in agreement with him.
Okay. Yes.
Now, maybe in keeping with Mr. Tiedeman's concerns, it's probably worth having the circulation pattern noted on a site plan. Again, if the buses are only going to be using that half circle drive, or are they going to be parking over off to the left as you see it on the aerial view there? Again, just a matter of ease for those using the parking lot, directional arrows and painted circulation patterns that just make it clear as to where people are entering and exiting, how the bus movement should.
So just to make it clear, we're doing the conditional use permit this evening for this use and this use only. So Mr. Viviani had a couple of businesses operating out of there previously. So we want to be sure that that doesn't occur. Right? Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Sidoti?
I read in some previous reports that the eastern side of your building, where you have that parking lot, is somewhat secluded by brush. So if you're on Lakeshore Boulevard, you really can't see what's occurring back there. And allegedly, there's illicit activity late at night or on weekends. Has that brush been removed so that eastern portion is visible? Or if that hasn't occurred, can you maybe somehow secure that during off hours to discourage vehicles or whatever going back there and taking advantage of that seclusion to drink, drugs, whatever?
Like I stated earlier, I have not been there since the brushes have been removed. That is definitely one of our concerns, that, children would go over there, especially since it is in a residential area, older children. We actually just experienced that problem at our current location. So I can't speak on behalf of that as of right now, since I have not been over there and have not sat down to acknowledge having that problem.
Mr. Viviani, can you step to the microphone, please? Can you address that situation that I just spoke about, where I read that that eastern portion of that lot is sometimes allegedly used by outsiders?
I'm not sure, when you say the eastern portion where the larger hedges are in
Yes,
front?
yes.
Well, we certainly don't allow that.
I
mean,
know,
if
I
people
know.
go do that, yes.
Is there any way you
we-
could secure it after hours? Wouldn't take much other than,
Fence the driveway or
Change-
cut those bushes down so people could see, but
Whatever
there's kind of a
works.
buffer there to hide the parking. So, I mean,
Is there a light there at night?
I don't think, there are lights on the building, but I don't think that parking lot's lit at all. So
you could
that
install
would-
a chain
That
where,
would help.
where your tenant's responsible for locking it up when they leave.
Well, you
Or like
could-
Mr.
yeah.
Tiedemann said, you could put a light back there.
Very easily,
Something to,
people are actually driving in there, is that what you've heard?
that's
People
what I've
drive-
heard and I've read, yes.
Well, I think there's only a small drive there, so you could probably just put a fence with a gate. Okay.
I think the fire department would have some concerns over that, would they not? I would guess,
I believe they would.
yeah. So,
Mr.
I
Chairman?
think the light's a good alternative.
Light, lower the hedges. Lower the hedges.
Yeah,
If
we
you go
could do
by this
that.
time of year, you can't see back there, because the hedge is so thick, you can't see what's going
No,
on.
that's true.
We got to do something to discourage.
Whatever you would recommend, be happy to do.
I
If
think
you
a
wanna
light- I think a
lower the
light would be
bushes and light
appropriate.
it, I'm good with that.
Okay,
Without shining lights into the neighbors' windows either, so.
Obviously,
Yeah.
well, I get with, does John McFarland do that too? As far as, the amount of luminums and where it shines to?
Planning department would review it.
So forth. Yeah, we could do that.
okay, I think we'll make that a condition.
great. Sounds good. Security light.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve with
6.
or how about 7 conditions? Do we want to do the directional arrows as one?
We
Within
can
the
do,
security
we can
light?
do the directional arrows and the security lighting as a single item, can't we?
Sure, you could indicate, provide a clear circulation pattern and lower the bushes on the eastern side of the property with lighting,
Security lighting.
security lighting.
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, motion to approve with 6 conditions as articulated, the 6th condition by Ms. Mitchell.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Just when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Cicero?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. You're all set. Under new business, miscellaneous review of an accessory structure in excess of 576 square feet for institutional uses at 9054 Lakeshore Boulevard. Your turn in the barrel.
Good evening.
Who did that?
Give us a quick overview of what you'd like to do at that location.
At our location, we're looking at just putting up a metal structure for storage reasons only to the back of our property there behind the church, probably about right where the arrow is. We've tried to keep our costs at a minimum, and a steel structure is the best route for us to go. And they don't offer a 24 by 24, they only offer a 24 by 26, and that's why we've come this evening to see if we can get approved for that size building there.
Okay, and it's steel on all sides? Is that
Yes,
what-
sir.
Okay. Normally, we don't allow that, so I'm sure the planning department told you that when you were in.
Well, that's why we were told we had to come to the planning commission, because we were above and there was a question on the steel building.
Gotcha, okay. So, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, what color are you going to make this, and how does that relate to the color of the
It
facility?
would be in the same color of our church, the white with the black trim.
Well, actually, now hearing that your existing building is white, I'm not sure we want to see a white storage building. Maybe we want to see something that's more subdued.
If you're gonna talk, sir, I need you at the podium. And if you identify yourself for the clerk, please.
Oh, there's the
There is other
church.
color
Okay, I
options
see.
With that, but we were trying to match the color of the church, white, and with the black shingles.
How about the brick? Match the brick color. How about if you, I mean, I'll look to the rest of the committee here, or the commission. How about to match the brick color? I'm trying to make it less obvious that there's a building back there rather than more obvious. So a white building standing in the back, everybody would see it. If you made it the color like a brick building, like you have some colors here. I guess it's a brown. No, I understand. I'm just trying to make the building less obvious rather than more obvious, because it is just a metal storage building. Maybe a brown color, something that would, you know, on this sheet, I know colors are strange. That color right there, maybe, that one. If you made it that, and you looked at it from the street, you might not even see it. And it would still kind of match from the street, the color of the brick you have on the front of the building. But I'll acquiesce to the commission if they have any other thoughts.
I'd like to see more brick. I know it's a financial consideration for you. But, I mean, we go through these machinations to make this nice for the area. That's why we spent so much time on the last item.
Right. We understand that, and our concern is looks too. We've taken great pride in our church. We've kept our church up and tried to keep this, and so the building we put back there, you know, this is basically our first choice is the metal building because of cost. We're looking at you know, using church funds on this.
Have you priced if you did some brick?
We haven't priced the brick, but we have priced more like a pole barn style, and we've priced like a garage style back. And we have probably between a $5,000 and a $10,000 difference in the buildings.
Okay. Well, that's my feeling. My feeling is that it should be more brick. We just went through a deal earlier tonight at a work session where we talked about minimums, and, you know, the minimum on a ancillary building, I think, could be 50% brick. Is that correct, Kath?
To be greater than 30.
Greater than 30.
Greater. Not minimum.
The way it's currently written is. Any thoughts?
Well, we've never looked into brick.
Well,
I mean, are you talking brick color, or are you talking actual brick?
well, it could be
Construction.
not brick color on a steel building, but, you know, brick color could be black, could be, what's that, through the wall?
CMU?
Mr. Varga?
I'm not sure what you're going for. It could be a brick-cladded structure of any kind, yeah. Any structure, metal building,
So,
but you still have brick on the outside.
that's my philosophy, my thought.
Like I say, the front of the church that faces Lakeshore has the brick. The whole rest of the other three sides of the building are all vinyl siding. Where this is,
Oh, I wish you hadn't said vinyl siding. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding to some extent.
The location of the building is going to be pretty much unseen from Lakeshore Boulevard. And probably from the other, if you look at that location right to the back right corner there, right in that area, that's where we plan on putting this building. And so it's not visible from very, very much except for the one street on the right side there. And that even has,
Those are deciduous trees, the leaves come off those in the fall, right? So in the wintertime, I'd see the building to some extent, I'm guessing. Am I right?
probably not from Lakeshore. I don't think from Lakeshore you would see it.
I have a question for the city. The reason this is in front of us is just because it's slightly over the allowable size for,
Size.
if it wasn't for the size, would this metal building be generally acceptable?
What'd you say? Yes?
So it's only.
What's the maximum size, Kathy, that,
576.
So this is 2 feet too big.
Yeah.
And that's why we've come to the committee tonight to see if we can get it put through for the 2 feet.
Okay, what's the pleasure?
I'm going to motion for approval with the one condition.
Could we, is there a reaction to the changing the color from white to as close to a brick color as they could find?
I actually, if this is the picture from that road, Larry,
Yes.
I actually like the white. Look at,
All right.
if you look at that, Jeff, it would match what you see of the building.
Because the sides of the building is
Because
white?
that's really the only view where you see something is from that side road.
Well, I'll withdraw my concern about the brick color. Make it white. I was trying to do the brick thing.
I appreciate that. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, when you're ready.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Cicero?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
No. That's it. You're okay?
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anything else, Kath? Director's
Nothing.
report?
Nothing.
We still have to approve the minutes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion now to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Sidoti?
Yes.
Mr. Tiedemann?
Yes.
Mr. Varga?
Yes.
Mr. Cicero?
Yes.
Mr. Cook?
Yes.
Mr. Snow?
Yes. Motion to adjourn?
There's anyone here from the community area, school, would love to be able to talk with you, if you would stay.
Okay, well, we can still.
Fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it?
That's it?
We're done.
Thank you.